Thank you for joining the Level Up training. We do this every Thursday at noon, so Eastern time. And today we have the pleasure of having Bryce Evans on, and Bryce is in California, unless you're somewhere different today. That's where you are.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you coming on board. Everybody, if you're new, you may not be familiar with Bryce, but if you've been around for at least a year, you should have seen his name in lots of posts, recognition posts, because he came into this business and he grabbed hold of it and listened and did what everybody recommended, and he had pretty fast success. I'm not exaggerating, am I, Bryce?
No, yeah,
okay.
We hit the ground running.
Hit the ground running. So I don't want to take a lot of time on your background, but since I think we got so many new agents that don't know you at all, if you could maybe just 1 minute or so, tell us a little bit about what you did before, and then how, when you found out we had leads, this seemed like an amazing fit.
Yeah, absolutely. My first job out of college was a very salesy outside sales job, right? So it was in the logistics industry, and basically what my company did was we found companies that were doing something with their shipping and logistics practices, and we try to get them to switch over to us if they were a good fit. So it was an outside sales, door to door, like cold calling type deal. So my first day on the job, they said, don't come back to the office until you have 50 business cards of owners. So I had to go and find and get 50 business cards of the owners of companies before I could even come back to the office. So I got back pretty late that day. But so, yeah, it was very, I would make like Excel file lists of what I would call potential leads. So they weren't even fully qualified leads yet. They were just companies that I see that they're sending out a bunch of packages. We may or may not be a good fit to work with them. And so I did that for about 4.5 years. And but when COVID hit, I was doing it pretty much all, obviously virtually. And so I would like Google search and like do Google Maps, you know what I mean? And like hover over my territory and oh, hey, looks like they have a truck parked there. They might do some shipping. And so that's how I was trying to like find leads. And so, when I started to sit there, I was like, man, there's got to be something better out there. I was making okay money, but I just knew I wanted more. I kind of got sick of that. So I just filled out my application or my resume to a bunch of different places. And honestly, Dom and Luann were the first ones to get back to me. And, the advertisement basically just said like, hey, no cold calling, we have leads, and this is the income potential. And, I was like, you guys had me at leads, like I spend all day trying to create leads. So this is legit that you guys already have leads. And honestly, the way I looked at leads was like, I know how much time I spend trying to find maybe, 5 to 10 leads a week. And I know you guys buy leads, but we used to joke all the time in our office, like I would be willing to spend money to find a list of companies that were just like moderately interested in switching from FedEx to UPS. Like I would pay for that, right? And so to me, like I know everybody comes in a different position, but to me, like buying leads was like, okay, sweet. Like I get to buy leads, and now I can spend my time appointment setting and selling, which is what is fun about sales, which is what I like to do, and not have to do the gritty, grimy, boring stuff, which is generating the leads. So that's how I just kind of looked at this thing in the beginning, was just kind of taking what I'm doing, but doing the fun stuff and not the boring stuff when it comes to sales.
I like it. And I hope that anybody on here who is still at that point where you sweat bullets when you push the button to buy your leads, that it makes you super anxious. I hope you heard him, that the first thing that got him was the fact that we had leads. He could pay for them. He could have them. He could have people who were at least remotely interested in insurance to reach out to, instead of literally cold calling, knocking on doors. And I'm sure all those businesses had people who their number one job was to keep people like you away from the owner. Because when Freddie managed motorcycle dealerships, there were like 3 people who knew you they're not to get through you to me. So I have no doubt you had fun trying to do that.
Yeah, that's
So, so Bryce, one thing that has always struck me about you and your quick process through the learning curve and finding success as quickly as you did is how you became very disciplined with staying, setting up a schedule, holding yourself accountable to that schedule, you know, whatever that meant, whether it was dialing, okay, I'm protecting my dial time, or whether it was running, okay, I'll run and do stuff in between. But prioritizing that, as well as you've always set a very high number of appointments per week. And I think both of that can truly benefit everybody on. So if you want to talk a little bit about how you got into that and maybe how you progressed from getting started, maybe it was a little wobbly, what you did to get it a firmer foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it all started with, you know, having an open mind. And, you know, I think you have to make a decision when you first start this business of whether you want to try to figure this thing out on your own, or if you want to copy success. And to me, it was just a very simple decision of like, okay, you know, you guys plugged me into your to the Marco Polo group before I even had my license. So I had been watching Paige, Chantel, Josh, Dom, all these guys, Conrad, just crush it on Marco Polo for like 4 weeks before I even could sell. And I was just like, those are the people that are crushing it, right? I will see the leaderboards. Like, I want to do what they're doing. And it was a pretty simple, like, I know that I'm not going to be as good as them because I don't know nearly as much, but if I can at least work like they're working, I think I have belief in myself that the skills and the knowledge and everything will come if I at least just like get started. And that's honestly what brought me comfort coming into such like a brand new business. And like anybody that has had any moderate level success of anything in their life has pride, right? So you come into this thing with some pride, and that's totally cool. And it sucks to start something new and have your pride take a hit because you look like, you know, you don't know what you're talking about in the beginning. And I think that's definitely a huge fear that, you know, I had, a lot of people have, is like, dude, I don't know anything about insurance. I don't know what I'm talking about. But what brought me comfort getting started in this thing was that will come with activity. And I just didn't question that, right? When John Wetmore talks about, dude, just only thing you should focus on is 30 appointments and everything else will come after that. I didn't go, okay, but, you know, let me make sure I know everything about the living benefits of Eagle Premier before I start. I was just like, all right, cool. Like, let's go. So I think that's where it started, is honestly just, for one, copying what you guys were doing. And for two, just having like a little bit of blind faith and some trust that if I just mimic that schedule, that things will come. Now, at the same time, when you talk about schedule, I also knew that like the number to hit was 20 families a month. And like, I was very like, I believed in myself that I could do it, but I was like, I got to do that. That's what they're saying is the number of what you got to hit. So that's what I got to be. So I kind of lost my train of thought there. So I knew that that's what I wanted to hit, but I knew that wasn't going to come with anything less than 30 appointments. Oh, here's what I was going to say. So I didn't think that, not knowing like anything about insurance or sales or anything, I didn't think I could hit that with, or I thought I could hit that, I'm sorry, with just like running your guys' schedule, right? Or running the just like a normal like 9 to 5 type schedule of working 40 hours a week or whatnot. But what I learned after a couple months is that like, if you really want to go beyond that, there's like an extra level of hours that you need to put into this thing beyond just kind of the showing up on dial day and you know, running appointments like as if it was a normal job. And how I treated this thing in the beginning was just kind of replacing my normal 9 to 5 hours with this. And what I quickly learned is that we're business owners, and that like, if you're starting a business from scratch and you don't know what you're doing, you have to give yourself more time to do it. And that's what, like, I didn't really run on Saturdays, and I definitely didn't run on Sundays, and I didn't really dial past like 5 to 6 p.m. And I think when things like, when I really started to get a grip on this thing, and you start going from the teetering around the 20 families a month to just kind of taking the cap off and going from there, is when you start to take off the cap off, like the hours and the time that you're willing to put in. And I kind of like, so it took me 3 months or so to realize, like, dude, you can't just work this thing like a normal 9 to 5. Yeah, like, you do got to treat it like a job in the sense that you got to show up every day, just like as if you were employed by somebody. But you have to take it beyond that if you like truly want to get what you can out of this business. And that's the thing where what I struggled with in the beginning was, not willing to give up my weekends and my evenings and stuff, and then take it from there.
I think you described it perfectly when you said it was, all of a sudden you realize it was a next level or another gear.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that you see, like Shadi, he's on a level I've never been on. I don't even think he has time to go to the bathroom. Okay. That's okay. That's what he wants to do. Now, we don't all have to do that, but the point I want to make sure everybody is getting is, if you are trying to reach a certain level of success, you got to gauge how much time and effort you have to put into this, plus leads, because to get all those appointments, you have to have enough leads and all of that. So, Bryce, I think that was exactly what everybody needed to hear. There's, it's up to you what level you go on. Nobody's putting a cap on you except yourself.
Right. Exactly.
So once all this kind of, all of a sudden the light bulb went off, what did you do next to really help you? Because not only did you start killing it with personal production, but you started hiring, and your team, that they kick butt too. Because they got you as a good example. So let's talk about how you kind of not only did it, but you started bringing people with you.
Yeah, well, I think that, the system in terms of having stuff like this and the live Zoom dials and the Marco Polo group, that makes it simple, because honestly, like, I still to this day, like, I know that there's no way in heck that I can be everything to anybody. And it's just really about just like, hey, this is kind of what we're doing, and plug into this. And honestly, I look at this business and honestly, I just heard Rob Richmond use this as an example on a call that he just did with Mark after he got his integrity deal. And I love it. But I look at this business like the movie 300, right? As where we have, was it Leonidas, that he was just like leading the charge and he's fighting with his guys. And then you have the Persians, where there's this guy just sitting in the back telling everybody what to do. And this business is more like 300. Like, I'm out there in the fight with you guys, and who wants to just tag along and do it with me, get our hands dirty and get after it. So that's the way I look at team building at this point, where I'm at as well, is just like, hey, this is everything that we have available. I'm on it. I'm doing all of it, plug into what I'm doing, and you can see other people as well, so that you can realize that, like, dude, I'm not that good. I'm not that smart, and I'm not that special, but there's other people, a lot of other people that you might relate to a little bit more, that you can work with, right? Like, I have Pardeep on my team. She only works weekends. She just helped 20 families this past month by literally only working weekends.
Nice.
And yeah, she's a mom of twin 3-year-olds, right? So she only has time to work on the weekends, because that's when her husband is off from his full-time job. So that's when she can do this thing. And I was like, look, I don't know what it's like to fit in raising kids and selling insurance. Like, I have a dog, like, that's it, and a wife. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a ton in terms of, I can help you get better at selling, but I can't really help you, like, I don't know, navigate some of the things that you got to deal with, like what you had to deal with building this thing. But Chantel, she definitely can, right? And there's other people that can. So if I would be remiss if I didn't plug her in and just like provide her access to so many other people that she can relate to more. And with that being the case, we have a much better business relationship because of that, because I'm not trying to tell her like, hey, don't pick your kids up and say, go sell insurance or whatever. You know what I mean? And so she's just involved in what everybody else is doing, and she's finding the people that she can relate to a little bit more and figure out her deal based off how they found success being in that same situation. So that's kind of how I look at the team building aspect of this thing.
I think that's another really good point. And again, so many new agents on here, guys. You're not limited to your direct upline. You're not limited to your immediate team. You're not limited to your bigger team. I mean, literally, Sean Mike built this that you can ask anybody in all of FFL, reach out, ask questions. So please keep that in mind and realize that if you are not connecting with somebody, find somebody you connect with. It's okay. And if you have someone asking you questions and you feel like a fish out of water because you have a dog and you don't have kids, then find somebody else to help them. We're all here to do that. Bryce, let's do this. Let's break it down. Again, a whole bunch of new agents, just like Rachel, are on here listening. Kaylee, today is her first dial day. Okay. So if you will maybe give some tips for first-time agents and anybody who's not a first-time, like brand new agent, like Ernie, you're not brand new. Richard, you're not brand new, but please listen to this, because sometimes once we feel like we understand what we're doing, we start skipping steps and we miss the basics. And when you do that, you'll end up going in reverse and you don't even know you're in reverse. Okay. So Bryce, if you can give some tips along that line.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just try to relate this thing as to what I know, and that's sports. Right.
Okay.
And, to just kind of relate it to what you know. Right. And if for you, if that's something different, then relate it to that. But like for me, I wasn't as good as like Dom or anything, but I played baseball my whole life. And I knew that I couldn't just show up to the games and show up to the plate and hit 300. Like I had to spend the time in the cages. And I definitely wasn't as talented as Dom. So I was talking about with this the other day. I was like, dude, I know I'm not as good of a hitter as you, but I spent way more time in the batting cages during the summers because I had to, in order to just have like a moderate level, just to like survive in like, high level high school baseball stuff. So this is the same thing, right? It's just like I love today's dial day. We're on the team call right now. You know what I mean? And we're on live Zoom dials dialing today. But especially in the beginning, it's you got to get in the cages after the game's over, before the game, everything like that. I truly believe that with how much good stuff is out there, and especially like how specific the boot camps that are put together, like I honestly believe that you can talk to 0 people, just plug into like a boot camp and help 20 families in a month. Like, because it's that good and it'll tell you what to do. And if you just can kind of understand that this is your business, I got to take a little bit of ownership for it, in the sense that like, I got to figure out how to log into America and get through an e-app. You know what I mean? There's like some little stuff like that that's not going to be in the boot camp. I get it, but like the training and the content that's out there is so good that you can give yourself such a solid baseline of how to attack this business, and then utilize people like Paige and Josh and like so many other people that have crushed it to like just kind of scale it from there. Right. So like, do yourself a huge favor and give yourself a baseline of knowledge, which is where the boot camps are, trainings like this. Take massive action and use people that have helped you out to just kind of scale it and get more specific from there. Like, I love it when somebody calls and they're like, hey, I had an appointment, this is kind of how it went. This is the specific scenario that happened. Like, what would you do different? As opposed to like, okay, I ran some appointments that didn't go well. Like, what do I do? It's like, okay, well, where do we start? You know what I mean? So I think that the such good training out there, utilize that, get crazy intentional about plugging into all the trainings, take crazy action, just don't be afraid to make a mess of things, and use the people that are here to help you to just kind of get more specific and scale it from there. If that makes sense.
That does make sense. And I remember when I first got started, I think one of the very first thing Dom ever said to me was, go make a mess. We'll figure it out. And that I was like, okay, now I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Right. And I'm one of those people, like most of you probably are. I was like, but I don't know the products and I don't know what I'm going to say. When he said, go make a mess, we'll figure it out, it gave me permission to go, even though I did not know everything. Because if you guys have ever heard Trey Honeycutt, a day in the field is like a month in a classroom. You can't replace the knowledge you're going to get, whether you're doing phone sales, Zoom, or in person. You cannot replace a day of doing that as long as you're smart. You listen to your training beforehand, like Bryce has said. You call. You didn't sell that. Call somebody. Call your upline. Call your mentor, whoever you're plugging in with. exactly like Bryce said, I didn't help that appointment. This is how it went. What would you do different? Because guys, if you will do that, your very next appointment, if the same scenario or the same objection comes up, now you're better prepared to overcome it because Bryce has just told you what he would have done. Right? Mm-hmm. So how many of you are calling when you leave an appointment that you don't sell? Rose is ducking out of the camera. She's like, I don't even want to maybe raise my hand for this. See, most people don't take that extra effort, but that is where you really hone in on what works and what doesn't. Now, it won't work in every case. Nothing ever does. Everything works a little bit here. So I think that's great advice, Bryce. Does anybody have any questions for Bryce before we wrap this up? I don't want to keep everybody from dialing on dial day. If you do, just unmute yourself or raise your hand. I'll unmute you.
I have a question.
Okay, go Rose.
Mr. Bryce, first of all, congratulations on your success. I just wanted to see kind of like what your daily, or I mean your weekly budget and lead strategy is for you to reach your goals.
Yeah, I know, like when I first got started, like my first probably 6 months was all internet leads, right? And then from there, I've kind of started to take on a little bit of mortgage and then a little bit like mail final expense. I've pretty much kept the budget the same. I just kind of start to replace lead types a little bit and work some lead types in and out. But it's usually somewhere the ballpark of $200 to $2,500 a week, I would say. And I still pick up, some internet leads and, social media leads. I love the YouTube leads on the CRM. But I think naturally, as you go throughout this business, I mean, people that have been here for a minute can probably attest that like your lead flow evolves. I love internet leads because you can get them right now. And it's the most intentional, straightforward lead. You don't have to wait for anything to come in, all that type of stuff. But I do believe in kind of evolving your lead strategy as you go, where you can start to work in some leads that may cost a little bit more, but may take a little bit less time to dial, right? And that's totally cool. And especially as you're building a business and you're recruiting and stuff, you need to give yourself more time, and you're willing to pay more for leads in order to do that. So that's kind of, I'm definitely a little bit more mail heavy, like now being here 2 years, but my first 6 months was everything in the CRM. And then you kind of build up some cash flow where you have the ability to take on some mail that starts to hit you, where you could get hit with like $2,000 in a day. You got to be ready for that. So that's kind of how I approach, my lead strategy. But anybody brand new, and everything in the CRM is how I got like my business started with, and I love all the leads that are in there.
Excellent. That's a good question. Any other questions for Bryce?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Bryce, awesome. Thank you for sharing all your sharing. I had a question about, you were talking about recruiting. I've come from, sat on hold here for a while, but as of last week said, okay, it's time. Get off the pot now. Because I was part of an MLM where we go recruit, and then recruit some more. And somebody said to me, how many people did you recruit? And I said, it doesn't matter. If they're not doing anything, it doesn't matter. So my question here, because it's a little different, is how do you go about, because I want to help people, have a better financial future if they want it. Okay, so how do you go about recruiting people into the final expense industry?
Well, I don't know, maybe you come from MLM, you might be able to give me more tips than I can give you on recruiting, honestly.
No. That's why I have smacked my head up against the wall. It's probably black and blue by now.
Yeah.
And it's—
Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't say that just because you don't have any writers, you haven't recruited anybody, because first of all, you have, because you got to start by talking to people. Like that's the number one thing. And you've talked to a lot of people, and just like everything else in this business, it comes with repetition. And the more repetition you put in, the better you'll get at it. So I wouldn't say I haven't recruited anybody. I would say I've recruited a bunch of people. I'm just haven't yet been good at converting them to helping them get paid, right? Which is totally cool. I'm working on that every day. Trust me. I think when it comes to like getting your business started with recruiting, honestly, a mistake that I made was I got paid a lot really fast, and I got really excited. And so I spewed that too much onto people. And then some people believe me. And if it didn't work for them, like, dude, you're a liar, you know? And so I took the wrong approach getting started of like, dude, you got to do this. I wish I would have taken a little bit more of a, hey, this is something that I'm excited about. I don't know if it's a good fit for you, but I think it could help you out. It'd be worth it for you to at least give it a look. And one thing I've learned is that people are more open to giving you money when you ask them for advice, as opposed to when you ask them for money, then they give you advice. And so I had a lot of people, by telling them they should do it, I was basically asking them for money, and they were giving me advice like, dude, you shouldn't do that. It's an MLM or whatever the case is. I wish I would have taken more of an approach of asking them for advice, letting them figure out how good it is on their own, and then letting them kind of sell themselves on why they should do it, as opposed to me trying to like hard sell them on why they should do it. So that's always my advice to people getting started is as excited as you are about this thing, you almost got to like take a step back and just introduce it to them and let them kind of figure out on their own.
I totally agree with that approach. And, I think another point, Barbara, I'm happy to hear, I've seen you on so many of the trainings and on the Zooms. The fact of the matter is, if you are looking to hire, the number one rule is you can expect the people you hire to do half of what you're doing. The very first thing in terms of hiring is you've got to set the right example in terms of your own personal production. That's the only thing I would add to what Bryce had to say. Because if you are, bless your heart, beating your head against the wall and your forehead is black and blue, but you don't have any sales, it will be uphill battle. Whereas if you are having sales and you're posting them the proper way without numbers, anything like that, and just like on social media and different things, letting people know I'm enjoying and having fun, I'm enjoying what I do, protecting families with life insurance. This week I protected 10. Then all of a sudden your people will start reaching out to you. Wait a minute, what are you doing? So it's kind of like Bryce saying, if he was asking for money, he got the advice, don't do it. But if he started asking for advice, people started paying attention. But you got to put that personal stuff, your personal production, it's got to be up there. Hey guys, we are at our time. Does anybody have one last question before we close this out? All right. Well, guys, Bryce is awesome. He's all over Facebook, all over Instagram. If you have an additional question that you want to ask him one-on-one, reach out. Bryce, I appreciate you taking the time. It's really good to see you. Just let it go. Okay, everybody, let everything holding you back, whether it's hair or anything else, go. And let's go crush today and crush this week. Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you. I appreciate you.